If she lets you touch this, your presence has already changed her. Not her body, her guard. And that's the part most men never realize they're reaching for. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to tell you isn't taught in dating advice. And it's never said out loud by women. When a woman allows a man close, the first thing she protects isn't her skin. It's her sense of safety, her emotional perimeter, her inner stillness. Long before intimacy, long before desire turns physical, there is a moment where she decides whether your energy belongs near her life or far away from it. The specific part isn't something you can point to. It's the space around her, her personal bubble, the invisible line where her nervous system either relaxes or tightens. When she lets you enter that space without flinching, without pulling back, without testing you, something profound has already happened. Think about it. A woman can be touched by many men, but she only lets herself be affected by very few. When she stands closer to you than she needs to, when she doesn't cross her arms while you speak, when she leans in instead of stepping back, when silence with you feels comfortable instead of awkward. These are not accidents. These are permissions, and permissions are never given lightly. Most men misunderstand attraction because they chase reactions instead of permissions. They look for signs like flirting, compliments, or physical escalation. But women decide much earlier than that. They decide based on how you make their body feel before you ever touch them. Do you calm her or do you stimulate her anxiety? Here's a truth most men never hear. A woman doesn't open her body to a man until her mind feels unthreatened and her emotions feel seen. When she allows you into her personal space, she's saying, "I trust you not to disrupt my inner world." That's rare. And it's why so many men fail without knowing why. They move too fast, speak too loudly, perform too much. They try to impress instead of ground. But a woman isn't looking for a show. She's scanning for stability. She's asking herself, if I let him closer, will I feel safer or smaller? When she lets you touch her hand without pulling away. When she lets you guide her gently through a crowded room. When she rests near you without checking her phone, that's not about chemistry. That's about consent at the deepest level. Consent of comfort, consent of presence. And once that is given, everything else becomes possible. This is why some men never have to force anything. Women open to them naturally, not because those men are perfect, but because they are predictable in a good way, calm, self-contained, emotionally regulated. Their touch doesn't demand, it reassures. Understand this. Women don't surrender to confidence alone. They surrender to emotional safety disguised as strength. If she lets you into her quiet moments, her pauses, her unguarded expressions, she's already chosen you on a level that has nothing to do with looks or lines. You're no longer being evaluated, you're being included. And once you're included, you don't chase, you lead gently. Because the most powerful touch a woman allows isn't on her body, it's on her nervous system. And very few men ever earn that. Here's where most men get confused, and where the truth quietly separates those who are chosen from those who are tolerated. When a woman lets you touch her time, her attention, her emotional rhythm, she's doing something far more intimate than physical contact. Because attention is the currency women guard even more fiercely than their bodies. If she gives you uninterrupted focus, if she slows her pace to match yours, if she doesn't rush to fill silence when you're around, that's not politeness. That's alignment. She's syncing her internal tempo with yours. And that only happens when her instincts say, this man feels right to be near. A woman's mind is rarely still. It's constantly scanning, anticipating, managing emotional undercurrents. So when she relaxes that vigilance around you, when she stops performing, stops editing herself, stops checking how she looks or sounds, you've entered a place few men are ever allowed. This is the part no one explains. Women don't fall for men who excite them the most. They fall for men who steady them. Notice what happens when you speak, and she doesn't interrupt, when she remembers small things you said weeks ago. When she asks follow-up questions, not out of curiosity but concern. That's not surface-level interest. That's emotional investment forming quietly beneath the surface. And here's the psychological edge most men miss. Women test men not by what they say, but by how they feel afterward. After being around you, does she feel lighter or heavier? More herself or more guarded, energized or drained? If she keeps coming back to your presence without needing a reason, that's not coincidence. That's her nervous system choosing familiarity over chaos. When a woman allows you to influence her mood, when your calm calms her, when your laughter disarms her tension, you've touched something deeply personal, her internal environment. And women are incredibly selective about who gets access there. This is why rushing kills attraction. Men who push for labels, physical escalation, or emotional intensity too early, unknowingly, signal insecurity. And insecurity feels unsafe. Women read that instantly, even if they can't explain it. But a man who is patient, grounded, and comfortable in silence communicates something powerful without words. I'm not here to take from you, I'm here to be with you. That's magnetic. When she lets you see her tired, her unfiltered thoughts, her moments of doubt, that's not vulnerability given freely. That's trust earned slowly. And trust once given creates a bond far stronger than chemistry. Here's the truth you were never supposed to hear. A woman doesn't decide she's yours in a dramatic moment. She decides in a series of quiet internal approvals. Each time you don't overstep, each time you listen instead of impress, each time you remain steady when she's emotional. And when those approvals stack up, her behavior changes. She starts adjusting her life to include you. Her schedule bends, her priorities shift, her defenses soften. At that point, touching her hand, her shoulder, her presence, none of it feels forced. It feels inevitable because the real connection was formed long before the physical one. You didn't win her by pursuit. You earned her by consistency. And once a woman gives you that level of access to her inner world, she's no longer deciding if she wants you. She's deciding how deeply she's willing to let you in. Now listen closely, because this is where the line between attraction and attachment is quietly crossed. When a woman lets you touch her emotional truth, not the polished version, not the playful mask, but the raw, unfiltered honesty beneath, you are no longer just a man in her life. You become a reference point. Most men never reach this level because they confuse vulnerability with weakness. But for a woman, emotional truth is sacred territory. She doesn't reveal it to be rescued. She reveals it to see if you can hold it without collapsing. When she tells you what actually hurt her, when she admits confusion, fear, or disappointment without laughing it off, when she stops pretending she has everything figured out. That is not a random confession. That is a test of emotional strength. Then here's the part few men understand. The moment she shares something she hasn't told many people, she's watching less of what you say and more of how you stay. Do you rush to fix? Do you judge? Do you minimize? Or do you remain present, grounded, and calm? Because a woman doesn't bond through being saved. She bonds through being seen without being handled. When she allows you to sit with her emotions without trying to control them, you touch something far more intimate than her body. You touch her sense of being accepted as she is. And acceptance is the foundation of deep attachment. This is why some men are remembered forever, while others fade quickly. Not because of looks or money, but because they were safe containers for emotional honesty. Women never forget the man who didn't flinch when they showed their truth. Notice the shift when this happens. Her voice softens, her stories deepen. She stops speaking in generalities and starts speaking in specifics. She shares not just what happened, but how it made her feel. That's not casual conversation. That's intimacy forming in real time. And once this door opens, it rarely closes completely, because the human nervous system remembers who felt safe during vulnerability, even years later. Here's a quiet psychological truth. Women don't attach to men who overwhelm them emotionally. They attach to men who regulate emotions simply by being themselves. If she cries in front of you without embarrassment, if she admits insecurity without fear of losing respect, if she disagrees with you honestly instead of pleasing you, that's not conflict. That's comfort. It means she trusts that your attraction isn't fragile. Men who need constant validation lose women at this stage. Because when a woman senses she must protect your ego, she cannot relax into connection. But when she feels free to be imperfect around you, desire deepens naturally. This is where many men unknowingly sabotage everything by changing once emotional access is given. Becoming possessive, becoming needy, becoming performative. But the man who remains the same, calm, steady, self-contained signals something powerful. You don't have to manage me. And that is intoxicating. When a woman lets you touch her emotional truth, she's not saying I'm yours. She's saying I feel safe enough to let you matter. And once you matter to a woman, her loyalty doesn't come from obligation. It comes from instinct, because the deepest attachment isn't formed through passion. It's formed through emotional safety repeated over time. And if you've reached this point, understand this clearly. You didn't take her heart. She placed it where she felt most secure. Here is the part that almost no man recognizes while it's happening. When a woman lets you touch her future, even subtly, you are no longer just someone she desires. You are someone she is considering. This doesn't start with big conversations or dramatic statements. It begins quietly, casually, almost invisibly. She mentions plans weeks from now and includes you without thinking. She asks your opinion on decisions that don't directly involve you. She adjusts her routines in small ways that make space for your presence. That is not attachment out of fear. That is attachment born from confidence in continuity. A woman only opens her future to a man when her instincts tell her he is emotionally stable enough to remain consistent, because inconsistency feels dangerous. And women do not plan around danger. When she lets your words influence her choices, when she weighs your perspective before acting, you've touched something deeply personal, her sense of direction. And direction is tied to identity, who she is becoming, where she feels safe going. This is where many men lose their power without realizing it. The moment they sense importance, they rush to secure it. They pressure, they define, they demand reassurance. And in doing so, they collapse the very safety that allowed her to open up in the first place. A woman doesn't want to feel claimed. She wants to feel chosen freely. When she invites you into her future, she's observing something critical. Will you remain grounded even when you matter? Or will you begin to need her in ways that feel heavy? Here's a truth that may unsettle you. Women don't pull away because they lose attraction. They pull away when attraction starts feeling like responsibility. If she senses that her presence is now required to stabilize your emotions, her instincts will slowly retreat, not out of cruelty but self-preservation. But when a man continues to live his life with purpose, direction, and emotional independence, even as intimacy deepens, he becomes rare. He becomes someone she can walk beside, not carry. That's when her investment grows quietly but deeply. You'll notice it in how she protects you in conversations with others, how she defends your character when you're not around, how she speaks about you as if you're already part of her world, not a temporary visitor. This is no longer attraction. This is alignment. And alignment is powerful because it doesn't rely on intensity. It relies on trust in time. When a woman lets you touch her future, she's not fantasizing. She's evaluating compatibility at the nervous system level. Can this man remain steady as life changes? Can he lead himself without controlling me? Can he grow without outgrowing me? If the answer continues to feel like yes, her bond doesn't fade. It solidifies. And here's the final psychological shift. At this stage, she's no longer asking, do I like him? She's asking, does life feel better with him in it? When a woman reaches that question internally, you don't need to chase. You don't need to convince. You don't need to prove. You simply need to remain who you were when she first felt safe enough to imagine tomorrow with you. Because the most intimate place a woman can let you touch isn't her body or her emotions. It's the version of herself she's becoming. And once you're part of that vision, you are not easily replaced. Now comes the ultimate truth that almost no man ever realizes until it's too late. When a woman lets you touch her vulnerability without fear, she has already decided at a level beneath words that you are not just someone to desire, but someone who belongs. And this isn't about her testing you. It's about her assessing whether the energy you bring into her life can coexist with hers without destroying it. Notice how subtle it is. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't write it on a sign. It's in the little moments, the way she pauses before correcting you, the way she doesn't mask irritation, the way she lets her voice drop softly around you, the way she allows you to see frustration or exhaustion without turning it into a performance. These are gateways. These are intimate spaces she guards fiercely. And here's what most men completely miss. It's not the physical touch that signals ownership in her eyes. It's the touch that you never force and that respects her boundaries at every level. The shoulder you gently brush in passing, the hand you place carefully when she's emotionally open, the reassurance you offer with your presence rather than words. Every microaction matters because it communicates. I see you, I accept you, and I'm not here to control you. Women are wired to respond to this on a subconscious level. When she lets you occupy that space, her mind is quietly recording. This man is safe, he is reliable. He is steady. He does not provoke chaos in my inner world. And once that is established, the rest of her defenses, the walls she thought were permanent, begin to dissolve without effort. This is where the line between desire and attachment blurs. She may not yet speak of commitment, but internally she's already measuring whether you can sustain that safety, whether you can remain present even as emotions fluctuate, and whether you can allow her the freedom to be fully herself. These are the invisible signals that make her start saying yes without ever having to utter it aloud. If you've earned this level of access, you will notice how her body language changes naturally. She leans in instead of away. She makes small gestures to maintain contact. She trusts you with her gaze, and she lets her pauses linger with you rather than filling them with distractions. That is her permission. The subtlest yet most profound sign that you are not just accepted but chosen. But here's the crucial part most men never understand. Once she reaches this point, you cannot backslide. You cannot return to neediness, insecurity, or performative gestures. Doing so will shatter the very trust she has built. Stability isn't optional at this stage. It is the invisible contract that keeps her heart tethered to yours. So if a woman lets you touch this specific part of her, her vulnerability, her unguarded truth, her nervous system, and even her future, she is in the quietest and most honest way saying, I choose you. Not because of lines, not because of charm, not because of intensity, but because you have shown her a rare combination of emotional steadiness, respect, and consistent presence that very few men ever achieve. Now, here's something for you to reflect on. If trust multiplied by presence equals attraction and vulnerability multiplied by consistency equals bond, what's the equation for deep, unshakable connection? Drop your answer in the comments below. Like this video if this opened your eyes. Subscribe for more hidden truths of female psychology and share it with a friend who needs to hear.